All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bryan Shue. I'm here with Shelly E- Es-
Elsliger.
Esliger. All
Yeah.
right. Thank you so much for your time this morning, Shelly. I really appreciate it. I know our audience will enjoy this message as well as much as I will, because that's another thing. Like I've been doing these interviews, I'm learning so much from other people. So that's really enlightening for me. I'm gonna turn it over to you. Kind of tell us about yourself and kind of what you do and where what is it that makes Shelley Shelley?
I'll start by saying I'm a jack of all trades, but I'll hone in on just a few things that I do. I'm a globally recognized LinkedIn trainer, so I've been doing LinkedIn training for it'll be 10 years next month. So it's been something that I've been, developing for a long time because I don't just want to increase people's knowledge of how to tell their online story through LinkedIn. I actually want to be able to tell them how. I also want to give them a platform and a tool to help them to elevate themselves personally and professionally, and also to empower them to tell their story, because not everybody feels comfortable offline. And for those people, this platform can be an awesome way for them to like get out of their comfort zone, especially women. I work a lot with women. My signature workshop is LinkedIn in High Heels, Rise Up and Lead Online. I'm also a career specialist. I've been working in that field for well over 15 years, and I work at University of Toronto, not only in the career development field, but I do a lot of the majority of the LinkedIn training as well. Um, and yeah, I do quite a few things, but a lot around women empowerment.
Wow, that's fantastic. And for me as a veteran, our women's veterans community is really and special to me because when you speak of the veteran community, especially here in the United States, you always think of somebody like myself and the men,
Mhm.
but we have such a wonderful women's group of veterans as well that it's really special to hear somebody like yourself saying, "I want to speak to the women. I want to help them get to that next level." So, why what made you get to that point of saying, I want to work with women, I want to empower them, I want to give them a voice?
So, I mean, when I was younger, I was this kind of carefree type of kid. I had a superwoman costume and the whole works. And then eventually, when I got into my teen years, I was, subject to bullying. And then I became, later on in my life, I became a career specialist. And I think because I really wanted to help people. But being in that field for a while, you kind of see things changing at a very fast rate, and I wanted to be in that change and part of that change. I feel that career development is always changing, and so first of all, I really wanted to empower everybody to kind of find their wings to fly professionally, and to do that as early as possible. And then I guess from a personal standpoint, I had the opportunity to get my voice back and to pave my way and to be both, working for the university, but also an entrepreneur at heart. And I just found myself really invested in meeting women and getting to know women. And it turned out to be, well, one time I'll give you a little story around it, but I was at this event, and it was all about women. It's after Sheryl Sandberg Lean In. So there's a chapter in Toronto, Canada, and I was there. And sometimes I can be strategic at these events. So I happened to see one of the speakers, a lawyer, go into the washroom. So I said, what better way than to go into the washroom and wait till she comes out? I didn't have to go. I just decided to be strategic. So we both came out at the same time, and we ended up having this big discussion. And she told me quite frankly that even though she wanted to be on LinkedIn, she felt like she couldn't be herself on LinkedIn and didn't know how she could take her leadership style from offline to online, and she was also experiencing imposter syndrome, which I thought was really interesting because here you have this highly recognized lawyer in Toronto who has made like has this reputation that surrounds her. She can walk into any room, but yet she felt that she couldn't do the same on LinkedIn. And at that point, it wanted me to even take that idea of working with women and elevating them higher, all women. But it was really interesting that that moment showed me that we all have those times where we're going to feel less than, or not the right person to go to, or we're going to question our expertise, or we're going to say, am I the one that should be putting out articles? Am I the one that should be seen as a thought leader? Will people see me as a thought leader? So that was one event. And I guess the strategy worked out because having a discussion with her really helped me to build LinkedIn in high heels for women business leaders. And so that's one of my favorite things to do.
Wow, that is fantastic. I mean, that's really something that people, I mean, even us men, I hate saying it like that, but even us men don't talk about that either. So having a voice like yours out there saying, this is what, this is kind of like, this is something that can be done, this is something special for us. So,
Yeah.
and, what has been the hardest part of being in that particular space? Um, in today's climate, because there is so much upheaval and so much going on with this COVID-19. What has been kind of like your hardest part, or what's changed for you since all this has been happening?
I think the biggest thing is I'm kind of a visionary. So for me, I'm constantly learning. I'm constantly wanting to embrace change. So I think what's hard is when you're working with people who still remain in a closed-minded space, like they're not willing to accept change, or they're not, or they even find it hard. I'm not saying that it's a like, I don't want to accept change. I think it's really in like grounded inside, that there's fear there, and fear is so powerful. So instead of them powering over fear, fear powers over them. And I guess I come from that idea that when fear comes my way, I power over fear. So what I've noticed with COVID-19 and everything that's happening, it just really shows the people that, okay, this is happening. How can I get on board? What can I do to change it up a little bit and embrace what's happening, because we can't control it. But what can we do in the meantime? But then there's the people over here that really have a closed mind, and I don't really necessarily like that word, but a closed-minded idea about embracing the change. They're trying to control things, whereas I'm kind of like, this is it. We can't control it. It's going to go wherever it's going to go. It's Mother Nature. We don't know where it's going to go. It's uncertain times. It's scary times. But what can we do to either ride with it or even rise above it in some ways? So I think that that's where my struggle is, because as an entrepreneur, I can kind of guess can be the leader to say, this is what we're going to do, or let's do this, or even tonight I have a webinar on with two other ladies, a LinkedIn Live, talking about what we can do in those times of change, what we can do to rise above it. But I think that there are times where we're surrounded by people that would rather, they just don't know how to do that. So that can be a little bit frustrating.
And so, what have you, since we are being quarantined, many of us are, what have you been able to enjoy more now that you're at home around, you're in your own space? Because I know that's a big thing for a lot of us. We're like, oh, good, we can do this.
So I've been off for, I guess, a week, little over a week now. It took me the first week just to get things set up in my space, and even get used to, because in my own business, I'm used to doing a lot of things online. when it comes to the university is not not the industry where online like career coaching is the thing. We have an office, we see students, whether it's face to face or workshops or you know, cool events with employers, and the whole beauty is networking and being able to shake that, you know, give that professional handshake and really make relationships come to be. So it took me a while just to kind of set up and get kind of like focused. So, but now I'm trying to also focus on me, because for the first week, I think that I worked more and forgot about me because I was so worried about just trying to put everything in place. So even this morning, I now set myself up with an online exercise program from my gym, who now they now have an online exercise program. I get out once a day. I don't know if you've ever heard of that 75-day challenge, but I've taken it on. So the 75-day challenge incorporates, you do exercise twice a day. One time is getting outside. So I walk for 45 minutes, and then I do some other kind of exercise here. Follow a good eating regime, whatever you choose that to be, and listen to at least 10 to 15 minutes, or read or listen to, I like Audible, so I usually listen to something that is not work related per day. So I'm trying to incorporate all of those things, and by doing that, so it's only day 2, but I'm feeling good.
I know you talked about your professional, your professional job as a career counselor in college. What what would you tell somebody, even your students, the difference between their personal brand and their professional brand, and how would they incorporate those into their messaging? Because that's a big deal now for a lot of companies. How is your professional brand versus your personal brand?
I guess because I work with LinkedIn a lot, for me, the two have always meshed together. As time goes on, and especially with the future of work, we're going to be looking at the human side of individuals. Like, that is not going away. In fact, I believe that that's going to be more important than ever. And the technology side, and like, things are changing, and we have to be running with them. So I don't really, for me, it's not um, so much of a change. I don't really separate them. I actually try to bring them together, because I don't think it's enough. In fact, I think it takes away from what a person has to offer when they kind of silo each one of them, because there are so many things we need to be as human beings, and as leaders, and as team members, and all of those things require us to look at our personal side and what we want them to be. So I don't really separate that. I try to say, what kind of branding statement can you make based on putting those two together? And not only looking at personal, professional, but social and cultural, and all of those things that you may have built along your path. What I like about LinkedIn is it's not an online resume. It's actually your career story. So it's always been about holistically presenting yourself. Because if you think about a networking event, and you talk about what you do, or you talk about your title, nobody remembers that, and nobody cares at the end of the day what your title is, or uh, even the job that you do, because it can often be the same as everybody else's. In a networking situation, what people walk away with, and why they remember you, or why they want to reach out and connect with you again, is because you've sparked them. You've connected with them. They remember something that was kind of really individualized with you. It was unique to you, but it really like struck something, maybe a story. There are so many things, but if you think about it, why do you go back and connect with somebody? Not because they're the same as everybody else, but because they stood out. So I don't think it's a question of separating. I think it's a question of bringing together, and then pulling from that to make something that is unique, and not worried about what other people are doing and saying about themselves, but what you can say about yourself to really stand out. I mean, I walk on fire every year. If I get into a discussion about walking on fire every year, guaranteed that's what people remember about me. And that's what people want to talk about because they're fascinated that I have to start my new year off by walking on fire.
Wow, that's actually really cool though. I mean, but that's what you were saying is correct. It's like, how are you going to be memorable
Yeah,
to somebody if you're just saying something that's very generic and very just like, okay, I've heard this story 20 other times from 20 other people. So what makes you different? Um,
exactly.
here's a question that's been asked to me, and I kind of I don't there's no real perfect answer, but I want to hear some perspectives. Is what advice would you give somebody that says, Shelly, I've been laid off because of this pandemic? What should I be doing? Where should I be going? How should I, you know, what can I do to kind of overcome this?
So people are still recruiting. It may not, I think what we have to do at this point in time is to open ourselves up to the opportunities that we may take on at this time. I think we have to realize where are those opportunities going to lie. I think that I think people who think that jobs are only the ones we go to, that's going to change because there are a lot of jobs out there that are remote. I know one of my favorite sites is Flex Jobs, and that's all about remote jobs all over the world. And if you take a look at that, there's everything from, career um, coaching, like I do, to, marketing management and digital marketing. And I mean, business development. Like, I mean, and at different levels, really everywhere from an internship to a CEO. So things are just changing, and I don't even think that it's just because of what's happening now. I think that we're going to see that even when things get back to normal. Um, Things are not going to go back to our normal. We are going to have to. I almost think that what's happening now, it's not great. It doesn't make us happy. It's taking away from a lot of people. It's causing pain to a lot of people and a lot of that whole insecurity type feeling. And it's not fun for the majority of us. But I also think that this is almost just a sign. There's a sign there that's telling us that things are changing. Maybe we didn't want this kind of a sign. I'm sure we didn't. But I really believe that it's a sign. And when we get back to what we consider normal, it's still not going to be the normal we knew before. It's going to be a new kind of normal. Because working with a lot of employers and working with students, and I have seen so many changes where it's not the old idea of I'll tell you what to do and then you go out and do it. It just doesn't work anymore, and it doesn't give employers what they need. So there's going to be a real focus on this is what I need, and you have to get yourself up there. And so I think, and what you have to get yourself up to, yeah, those skills are going to be different than what we used to think. Like, for example, nobody used to talk about resiliency. Nobody used to talk about resiliency, but it's actually something that you better be prepared to talk about in an interview. So just things like that, I mean, they might seem little, but they're huge because resiliency, and not like networking, relationship building. So you see these things coming out, and they're different than what employers expected you to talk about on your resume or through your LinkedIn story. You have to be able to be prepared to talk about how you are now going to face the future of work, and how things are going to work differently for you, but how you can actually accustom yourself to that agility, and being able to adapt is going to be a big one as well.
Wow, I mean, you gave some really great points there, and it really, it gave me some ideas of like that's kind of some silver lines that you were mentioning. Is the resiliency part. And this is not going to be your standard going to the office, you work 8 hours, you go home. It's more than that now. But here's a question for you. I know this is kind of probably a hot topic for you. Is how do you stay connected when you're dealing with social distancing or self-isolation or quarantine? Or what's your favorite way to connect with your people that are all over Toronto or even all over the world?
I bet you know my answer though, deep down. It's LinkedIn. Like the thing about having a really solid community online, and I've been preaching this for many years, 10 to be exact. So, and people used to challenge me on that. Well, it'll never be the same as offline. But then something like this happens, and LinkedIn is not going away. My community on LinkedIn is stronger than ever, to be honest, because we're all coming together to help each other, whether that's because that's opportunity, whether it's to share resources, whether it's to offer something new, whether it's to introduce you to the right people. I mean, there are so many people are collaborating on so many different initiatives. So I can't stress it enough to have an online community. Mine happens to be LinkedIn, but there are also other online communities that people can, be attached to in the same way. But having that online community, I guess we don't realize how important it is until something like this happens where you have to self-isolate. I'm a
Yeah,
community person. A few years ago, I had both a mentor and a coach both tell me that I am through and through 10 out of 10 a community person. So I do everything community, exercise, even the things I do, well, even LinkedIn, I do everything community wise, off and online. So the thought of, self-isolation makes it is very, very challenging for me. But I have to say that having an online community and connecting with them on a regular basis is really important because they were there before and they're there now and they'll be there after. So it's not like I had to build a new community. The community was already there and we've gotten stronger for it. And then
absolutely.
and then
No, that's great.
offline, it's just about really making sure that we do have ways to connect. And I mean, there are so many opportunities for, yeah. I just heard that like edX and MOOC are like universities and colleges all over the world are offering something like 16,000 free courses to people just in order for them to have the skills they need to communicate with other people. That's awesome. Like I'm really involved with LinkedIn Learning, and just LinkedIn Learning alone, they opened up two learning paths, one to how to effectively work remotely, and the second one was like how to, well, the first one was working remotely, and then the other one was like how to actually build your skills and how to deliver online, like how to do something online effectively. If you have never done that, if your work has always pushed you to do something offline, this course will allow you and help you to transfer that online. And these are all free. In the real world, you'd be paying a lot of money for them. So if you do any kind of research, I know I've been putting out a lot of different links on LinkedIn to help people, but there are so many offerings that are free and we can take advantage of them. They're for everybody.
Yeah, and I know there's been several like the Ivy League colleges that have actually opened up their courses for those of us that are stuck at home to utilize, and they're taught by their actual professors. So it's like
Yep,
you're getting some top-notch education from Yale, Harvard,
everywhere.
Cambridge, except, I mean, yeah, you're right. It's all over the world, but, this is a time of personal development that we should take advantage of. And, for you as a leader, what would you tell your fellow leaders about being effective during this time period?
I think for being an effective leader is checking in with your team and your teammates on a regular basis, maybe providing resources that you may not have provided in the past, but making sure that you're thinking about those resources, not just from what they can offer to other people if their job requires it, but resources that they can use to to kind of help themselves through this time. I think that great leaders, we really think about the people that we're surrounded by and the people that we can help, and even letting people know of some really great opportunities online that they can take advantage of it of. And I guess again, personal and professional, we have to, it's nice to think about everything like work, 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 but at the end of the day, if we don't feel good and we're feeling unhealthy and we're having trouble with all of this uncertainty that surrounds us, how can we really be good professionally, and working with clients or customers or teams, or so it's really important to just as a leader to focus on what we can give from a personal and professional standpoint.
And you really covered that very well. And about even being effective leaders is offering that. And this is what I've heard from other people is being that voice for your people, being that voice and saying, I know we're all struggling. I know we're all going through stuff. We're going to get through this together because we are a team. We are a family. And that's, I think, how we need to kind of start approaching this is when you're going to work, you're going into another family unit
Mhm.
per se. And these people want to be treated with respect. They want to be treated as if they have a voice. And I know one of my good friends through LinkedIn, Tim Salu, who worked at Microsoft and we worked for a while. He's been preaching this as this is the future of work. Is you're
Mhm.
not going in for a job, you're going into for a particular skill set that you bring to the organization. They'll push their mission forward. And now I think we're starting to see that actually coming to life in such a strange time because it wasn't expected. And now we're like, well, now we can't just hire for can you can you check off these boxes? Is
Yeah.
can you do you have these particular skills? Like you mentioned resiliency, networking, relationship building, emotional intelligence.
Mhm.
Those are big things that you need to not only just be a leader inside the organization, but also to be able to work inside the organization.
I always say, who are you behind the title? Because that's what
Absolutely.
really matters
Absolutely,
at the end of the day.
absolutely.
Hmm.
Titles are fleeting. It's what you have, both inside you and what you portray to the people around you is what really matters the most. And I know
Absolutely.
it's really during this time period we can really reflect on that and say, besides what my title says, what am I saying about myself
Mhm.
to my greater audience, both on LinkedIn and in person? So, and that's kind of what drives some of us, especially me, being a military veteran, serving in the military for over 11 years, during this time, I'm like, I've kind of joked with this in my community. It's like, this is like a deployment to me. I'm in the desert. I don't really have anywhere to go. I can't really just go anywhere. I have my stuff in my house. I have my job, and that's it. I'm going to focus on this. And I'm going to focus on my job. I'm going to focus on the mission, which is my job. And I'm going to get that done to the best of my abilities for however many hours I can do it. And then, when it's time to shut down, I shut down. I go sit down somewhere, and then I just relax until that next time for me to jump up and do my job again.
Mm.
And it's kind of funny because the civilian sector doesn't really realize that. But, when you're a veteran that's been in deployments like I have,
Mm.
we're used to being isolated. We're used to being, so focused, hyper focused, really, on our roles
Right.
and what we're doing. So, for us, we're just like, you know what? All right,
Mhm.
cool. I've been here before. It's comfortable. But
Yeah.
most people are like, oh my God, I don't know how to deal with this. I'm like, all right, cool. You just shipped me back to Iraq again. But hey, here I am
So
at
we
my
need to,
house.
yeah, we need to talk to more people like you.
And I love being able to share that story because it is like
Mhm.
you have to understand it's like this is not a time to panic. This is a time to evaluate and to reflect on what are you doing, both personal and like you said, personal and professional. Stop trying to silo those two and say, you know what, they're one and the same because who I am personally can also be who I am professionally. So,
Yeah.
and that's an important growth aspect for a lot of professionals too. So, I want to ask, where can people go to connect with you, Shelley?
Mainly LinkedIn.
I know. I
uh,
was like, she's gonna be like LinkedIn,
well,
hit me up
LinkedIn
on
is
LinkedIn.
my,
Yeah.
is my second home. It's where I'm able to give a lot of not only myself, but give a lot of pay a lot of things forward, right?
Absolutely.
And that it's what I do every day. I also have a website called linkedexpress.ca, and I have a new campaign called the Decide to Be Kind campaign, and this started January 1st, 2020, and it's very meaningful for me. So a lot of that information is on my website, but it's also on LinkedIn as well. But it's a campaign against bullying on LinkedIn, because bullying on LinkedIn happens, but it's often subtle and it goes unnoticed and people don't believe it's happening. But it's a critical thing to know, because this is people's professionals' lives that we're working with on LinkedIn. So when we have bullies on LinkedIn, it can be pretty detrimental to some people's careers. And I've seen people go off of LinkedIn. So I was bullied when I was younger as a teen, and I found my voice back on LinkedIn. So I will do everything above 100% to make sure that this platform remains a safe and positive and influential environment for not only for the people that are on there and enjoying the platform now, and benefiting from it, but the younger generations, the students in university and college that are going to need LinkedIn. And it's not going to be a question of whether they'll use it. It's a must, because the resume, as we talked about earlier, is not able to do what it needs to do for employers and recruiters to make a decision on that candidate's future with them. It's just not possible through a resume anymore. So more and more employers are wanting more and more, and they're not able to get it through a resume. So, this is really important, and I want them to feel that this space is safe, and I want them to enjoy it, and I want them to navigate it, and I want them to tell their stories. So I have a wristband, and it's the Decide to Be Kind wristband. I wear it every day. You can be a LinkedIn superhero. And these wristbands, since January 1st, 2020, have gone all around the world, and we're united in this message. And I'm really proud of it, because it encompasses what I really think about kindness, and kindness is currency. So being
Mm.
able to understand that whole idea about social reciprocity is so important, especially at times like this. So more information on my website.
Yeah, no, that was what I was about to ask you is, what inspiring message would you like to share with our viewers as we wrap this up? But that message right there was like, right. I mean, like that, ladies and gentlemen, those that are watching here, this is what this message is about. This is why, the Full Moon Digital team has went all in on this, lockdown, series that we're
Yeah.
doing here, is to share, we're all in this together. We're not
Mm-hmm.
one against the other. We're humans, and we all need to be putting forth our best efforts every day to put forth, a positive message, and to
Mm-hmm.
kind of push those people that maybe, like I mentioned earlier, that have been laid off. How can we help them? Give them some, like, hey, you know what? I know you're in a bad situation. Let's work and let's kind of make this a better situation for you. Maybe we can't get you a job, but we can provide you some hope.
Yeah.
So, and that's the biggest part that I think we can take away from this, is like there's hope out there. You just need to maybe go find it, or you might need to go find the people that are like talking about it. Because if you get stuck in the same barrel, you're going to get the same message over and over. It may be time to get into a new barrel with some new people.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, it's just like the comfort zone. Everybody says, I want to stay in my comfort zone. But when you
exactly.
think about your comfort zone, it's not that comfortable anyway.
No, no, it's
You
not.
really want to go the comfort zone, because if it was, people say I want to stay in my comfort zone, but then they want change, and that's an indication that the comfort zone is not really that comfortable
Yeah.
after all. So
No, absolutely. It's one of those oxymorons that I think a lot of people get like confused on. It's like, oh, I'm going to be in a comfort zone. Oh, you're comfortable. You don't need to talk about change. You don't need to talk about a new job or new career or
mm,
more money or whatever, new something. If you're comfortable, you don't need anything.
yeah.
You're right where you're at. But so many people are like, oh, I want something new.
Mm.
That's not comfort. That just isn't. That's like the total opposite of comfort. So, but
Exactly.
Shelly, I thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. I know our viewers will be excited to hear from you, and I hope more of them reach out to you and kind of start that conversation because, especially on the women's side, I hope our women, that are watching this will reach out to you and have that conversation of how can they be better leaders inside their organizations, or if they want to become leaders, what do they need to do? How can they show that potential, because I think a lot of people get overlooked that probably should never be overlooked. And
100%.
unfortunately, I think a lot of them are women. And I
Mm.
know it's a big concern for me because at the end of the day, I don't care if you're a man, woman, child, whatever. You have the skills to lead. By God, just take the reins and lead the organization.
Yeah,
And it doesn't matter if you're 18 or 50. If you have that skill or you know how to do it, then 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 the seat should be yours, and
absolutely.
it shouldn't be held just for a particular individual. It should be held for the person that shows the best potential and also the best skills for leading. So,
Yeah,
anyways,
I
that's
agree.
my
No,
that's my
there.
diatribe. So,
I mean, thinking about that though, I mean, there are even high schools that are reaching out to me for me to go in and teach students about LinkedIn at the, at the higher level of high school, and I think it's wonderful. I think it's just like, wow, uh, this is great, and then I want to like hug the teachers because like I'm like this is exactly what has to happen, so they have the ball rolling already, and they're already thinking about how they can lead online too by the time they get to university or college, which is, I think, amazing.
no, and it should be, and that's one thing. Like for me, is in my personal development, is like I knew about LinkedIn years ago, but did I know to actually do anything? No, I didn't do anything until I got to college.
Mm,
And, granted, college, high school for me was back in the 2000s. College for me was in the 2010s. I could have been building my brand for the past 7+ years
mm,
if I knew what I was doing and if it was actually if I was educated in that process. But it wasn't talked about
mm,
until till I was almost done with college, and it's like, well, I got this thing, let me start using it.
mm.
But hopefully that message keeps spreading, and that that idea keeps being shared, that this LinkedIn platform is not a bad thing, it's a good thing, and it's going to help you. It's only going to help you. It's never
And
going to hurt you.
and what's really cool about LinkedIn too is that they really want the platform to be a catalyst to help veterans as well.
Yes,
And
they
they've
do.
pushed that. I mean, they've pushed that
Yep,
worldwide. So
yep.
I really have to give them kudos for that. Because they've even offered like free courses and
Yep,
free LinkedIn
yep,
learning and free resources to some of us teachers
yep.
who want to work with that population. And I think it's like wonderful that they've taken that and said, we're not going to stand back and watch. We're going to try to be part of helping that population connect with the LinkedIn platform and
Yes.
help it to benefit them. So I think
Yeah.
it's, yeah,
Yeah, I know
amazing.
as a U.S. veteran, we get a free year of LinkedIn Premium, which for me,
Exactly.
I was
Yeah.
like, that was fantastic. I didn't realize the value in it until I took advantage of it, and then I started sharing it out, and more of us have been joining the premium platform, and it's been incredible seeing the amount of individuals that have successfully left military service and joined the corporate ranks, and are
Hmm.
now looking back and saying, "Hey, Jim, you're getting out after 20 years. How can I help you tell your story so you can join my organization, or maybe not join my personally, but you can
Hmm.
join maybe a friend that I have at Bank of America, or Chase, Citibank, whatever, any company you can think of that's Fortune 500 or above. you know we're having our community reach back out and say, I'm in this company. How can I open a door for you? So
Hmm.
that's been fantastic. And that only, I'm sorry, but that wouldn't have came through anything but relationships
Yeah.
through LinkedIn. And
Yeah.
again, it's what I preach on. I know I preach on a lot is those relationships on LinkedIn are vital to success down the road. It
Yeah.
may, and that's another thing. People are like, oh, I want it right now. Right now isn't applicable. It may happen in a month, 3 months, because again, relationships aren't overnight. They take time. So And like I
And
tell people all the time, it's people don't hire people just because they sound great. They hire them because they trust them.
yes, trust is key. Trust is currency.
It is. But Shelly, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I loved our conversation today, and I hope we can continue this on the, edit down the road maybe after this is over.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and thank you for all the listeners. And I'm truly happy to pay anything forward. All my knowledge, and I'm a big believer in paying goodness forward. So
That's
glad
fantastic.
to do
Well,
it.
thank you so much, Shelly. Hope you have a great day. Take care of yourself out there. Be safe, and we'll catch up again.
Thank you so much.
Have a great one.
Bye.
Bye bye.